everybody, and welcome back to WNY High School Sportsline. Today is Wednesday, April the 8th. I am your host, Frank Wolf from WNYathletics.com, and I want to thank everybody for joining in last night for that great episode we had with Dick Gallagher joining us and Joe Licata. And I've been getting a lot of compliments and feedback's been tremendous. So thank you very much for watching, and I hope you stick with me through this time. And we'll get more people from around Western New York high school athletics involved, whether it's Dick Gallagher, Joe Licata. We really want to focus on the athletes too themselves, especially those seniors right now that are going to be exiting sooner than you know it. May not have as much fanfare as we'd like to have given them we had the spring athletic season, which is looking bleaker and bleaker with each and every passing day. Today on the show, we will have Hall of Famer Lenny Jancowitz, and he's going to spend about 20-25 minutes talking with me. He's got a lot of great things to say, touch on a lot of different subjects. Len, of course, went to the Greater Buffalo Sports Hall of Fame back in 2019, and after Len, we're going to hear from Brian Stoldt. He is currently the defensive backs coach out at Alfred University. He is the son of Ken Stoldt, Section 6 chairman for football. And Brian was an athlete at Alden High School. He was an Alden Bulldog. We're going to get his thoughts on what's going on with how his recruiting pattern has changed and how the Saxons are getting ready for the season. A number of Western New Yorkers are there. Names you remember, names you've heard of, Matt Eldridge and Rob Giancarlo. We didn't necessarily talk about those two recent grads, but because I think very highly of both Matt and Rob to this day, that I wanted to make sure I brought in one of their coaches, and he was just glowing. A number of players he talked about, and you'll hear about that in our interview with Brian. What's going on around Western New York? I know that it was a signing of the Monsignor Martin, Mount St. Mary's, congratulating Abby O'Hara as she signs a national letter of intent to play soccer at D3. Hilbert, just today, congratulations to that young lady. We'll have a member of the Mount St. Mary's group coming up, and maybe tomorrow I think we'll have another girl from Mount St. Mary's coming in with us. We'll have to wait and see about that, but I believe there is a girl from Mount St. Mary's coming in. You know, because we can't really get out and do a whole lot of live streaming, things like that, WNY Athletics take a little bit of a hit there. So if you guys if we get back to doing something athletic and you want a play-by-play team, live stream your event or whatever, we can have all the capabilities of doing that. We'd love to come out and do something this summer to keep our crew fresh. Next year, any high schools that want us to come out and do your game specifically with a full crew, broadcast, replays, whatever, we will come out and do your school football game, your soccer game, what have you. If you need WNY Athletics to come out and cover your event and throw it up on YouTube, on your own personal page, we'll be happy to do that for us. Remember WNY Athletics next year when we get this season going on once again. So a lot going on here today on the show. Lenny Jancowitz, Brian Stoldt coming up in just a moment on WNY Athletics High School Sports Line with Frank Wolf. Thank you very much.
Logistics Plus is a global transportation provider headquartered in Erie, PA, with locations worldwide, including right here in Western New York. Logistics Plus is consistently recognized as a fast-growing transportation and logistics company, great supply chain partner, top freight broker, leading project cargo manager, and a great place to work. With a strong passion for excellence, our 500-plus employees put the plus in logistics. Call our Buffalo office today for an efficient, personal approach for all of your transportation needs.
WNY High School Sportsline, Frank Wolf. I am now joined by the legendary Lenny Jancowitz, who spent 26 years walking up and down the sideline as the head coach of the Lancaster Redskins / Legends. He was inducted into the Greater Buffalo Sports Hall of Fame in 2019, 1 year after his old friend John Fowler, who passed away last year, unfortunately. I'm going to ask Len to share some stories about John, maybe the late Chuck Funky and Milt Dickerson as well. Recently, Len had to cancel the combine slated for St. Francis May 2nd. And Len has been a stalwart when it comes to helping kids recruit, find their way to from high school to the collegiate level. And his work with Western New York Amateur Football Alliance has been extraordinary. So I wanted to invite Coach Jankiewicz on today to just talk a little bit about that and see how he's doing during this the pandemic. It looks like he's doing very well. And here is Coach Jankiewicz joining me now. Len, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. I know you're busy. Always been a huge admirer of yours, even though you pounded my Kenmore West Blue Devils for many years. I've forgiven you.
You know, Kenmore West, they've been a bone and art side too for many, many years too. Maybe before your time, Frank, is the time that really wailed on us here. But Kenmore West is legendary. Enough said.
Jerry Tutwiler and all those guys, they've been successful too. But lately, Lancaster has been just a program that has really taken Section 6 by storm. The job that Eric Rupp did after taking over for you. How many Section 6 titles in a row have they won? I mean, that's just when you
counting, right?
Yes, but you go to Lancaster and you see the complex today from where it was even 10 years ago. It's I don't want to say night and day, but it's like the Mecca. When you think of high school football programs and the facilities, Lancaster to me is almost second to none, and that's one of the main reasons why they're so successful. And of course, they've got the legends like yourself and Mr. Foyle walking the sidelines, and Eric's doing a very good job. So,
the facilities are great. I mean, we have a little bandbox of a football field that right now I think you couldn't build because of all the OSHA constraints in terms of making sure that the stands are away from the field and that sidelines are in the right protocol for safety and so forth. But right now, God's sakes, if set of parents disagree with the coach's call, you could probably throw some tomatoes and probably hit them square in the head without even any trouble. So
I can attest to that. The last couple of years, that could definitely happen.
Well, it's a great place to play. You're right, and it's very very homey. And I'll say something about Lancaster in terms of my stay there. I was so blessed by having administrators that were just so in my corner in terms of everything I wanted to do. I hate to say this now to admit it, but really they never said no. They said maybe, and we'll try to work it out. It's never a flat out no, and it was always in favor of the kids, and they were so gracious, and so understanding that athletics, Frank, were just another extension of the educational realm, and they kind of knew what good can happen from a great, athletic experience. And, the girls teams prospered so well, and the modified teams accrued a lot, and we gained a lot of numbers in terms of our modified program, and that kind of festered into more successful varsity situations. But it's been a great situation there. Plus, the community, Frank, is second to none in terms of the support for athletics. Like everybody else, they wanted to do well, and they want to have their little Susie and her little Mikey do well in sport programs. But they've given such great support over the years that I'm blessed 10 times over every time I think about it. And so is my predecessor, Coach Joe Foyle. He feels the same, is that, we couldn't have coached in a better situation.
Coach, you guys had tremendous success. What would you say to Eric or any other coach right now that may be watching, tuning in? What would your approach be to handling the set of circumstances that these guys have been thrown the last couple of weeks, last month or so? What would you be saying to those coaches, or what would you be saying to your players if you were running a program right now?
Well, I think And I think Eric is probably doing it. Certainly, I'm not in his group text line in terms of finding out how kids are doing or whatever, but I'm sure he's doing it. And I'm sure not only he, but the assistant coaches are doing the same thing too, is stay in contact with your team. I mean, they're your athletic family, so to speak. You know, they're an extension of your own family, so to speak, but in a temporary way, but sometimes in a different way, maybe a lot deeper. You know, uh, the kids depend on you for leadership. They depend on you for direction. Frank, we talked about this a little while ago. Football, like every other thing, is so structure oriented. You know, when you throw this pandemic into the mix, it throws a lot of irregularity into the mix. Time clock goes away. Some people don't even know what day it is. You know, and you kind of lose track of time. That's not what football's all about. Everything is structured. Everything is done in a minute. And all of a sudden, you go from that element that Eric was in the off season to something that is just truncated, and now you're on your own. You just can't let them expect to be back in the fold all at once unless you keep a little tethered line on them, and I kind of think he's doing that. Now, you can meet with kids online just like we're doing now, and everybody's in the technology. Everybody has a phone or a machine or something that you can connect with. And boy, the advantage of doing that now, and even workouts, maybe body weight workouts, conditioning, just by running, getting out there, just what our governor is saying we should do. You get out there and jog or run. You can still be athletic, so to speak, and be connected with your football team. And I know one thing, Frank, is that the kids are keeping in touch with each other, so why not the coach?
Yeah, absolutely. Coach, I'm going to throw a couple of names at you. If you could just share maybe a story or two about them, I would love to hear something during this time to help lift our spirits. But Chuck Funky, is there a story you want to share about Chuck Funky?
Well, Chuck has always been an idol of mine. Ever since I'd known Chuck, certainly not as he was a coach. I was coaching with Coach Foyle at the time. He was a head coach at Iroquois, but I heard his legendary teams were very good there as Iroquois Chiefs kind of marched along. But then when he took ownership of the chairmanship of Section 6, and then it became a head coach in the middle 80s at Lancaster, I got to know Chuck pretty well on a one-on-one basis, and he got to know me, and then I got invited to be a chairman, early in my career because of my connection with him. What I remember about Chuck, Frank, is his authoritarian nature without being authoritarian, if that makes any sense. His voice resonated. His brother is, I don't know whether that he still is a disc jockey in the Rochester area. And I think both share the same pipe, because they have, just a baritone voice that kind of resonates with you. And every time he raises his voice, you kind of shudder in your shoes because when he got ticked off, look out, because Mr. Funky is on his way to get things done. But his organization, and if you remember, Frank, back when Section 6 was kind of like a second fiddle to Section 5 in terms of football championships, when he really turned the corner with Section 6 football is when he made an impression on the coaches to really do your job and go to clinics, and he conducted clinics himself in terms of connecting with the Bills and having these on-site clinics. They really turned a corner, and he took a lot of pride, Frank, in terms of having Section 6 really take away 3 to 4 sectional championships by way of classifications. At the Section 6, Section 5 games, they were really, really big for him. And before his unfortunate passing, right to the bitter end, he was still involved with football, and with the alliance, by the way, that he kind of melted into with the high schools that I kind of chummed along with. But he was really the reason I kind of think that Section 6 football made their big strides in the 80s and 90s. When you talk about championship teams, you talk about John Fowler with Sweet Home, and the run he had there too. It was just terrific following him.
How about, I was going to ask you about John. Is there you shared one with me a little earlier?
Yeah.
That's a good one. I think the guys would love to hear that.
Both he and I were friends. We kind of shared kind of like lives together because we came up as football coaches, and he dipped his toe into the administration arena with being an AD at Sweet Home for a little bit of time. He kind of bowed out there because he chose to take another path. But I remember back in the middle 80s, we had some pretty good teams, and we kind of squared off at Sweet Home. And I should be coming over in my traveling whites, and I came over in our dark uniforms, and he had dark blue and gold, and I had black uniforms. It was black and almost black pants. And when we were rolling around in mud, nobody could tell who was who. When I got off the bus, he holds his hands up. He says, "This is how you show up. This is how this is our friendship." And he looked the other way. Of course, he had that little smirk in his face. And the game was really tight. I think we might have won by a couple of points, whatever, at the end of the game. And we shook each other's hands. And we were always friends about that. But John had a sense of humor that was cutting all the time, and is very dry. But he always had a little parting comment that I always let him get away with, because he always had the upper hand in terms of that. And of course, talk about his career. It's second to none in terms of the run he had. And we shared time together. I remember we took our quarterbacks together to Toledo, spent the time overnight together in a van, just because we wanted to tool up both our quarterbacks with one of their offensive coordinators who actually, I think, made it up to the pros, and his name escapes me now, but John was convinced he was the best in the country, and he and I shared a weekend together. It was just, we had instances like that were just great. And a big loss for the community, not only for Sweet Home, but for Western New York football, because Frankie did it right. He did it right all the time. No matter what the occurrences was, no matter what the situation, John Fowler was just a pillar of strength and stood for integrity throughout his life.
Excellent. One more, Milt Dickerson.
Yeah, Milt, I share a story about him because he and I are both Yankee fans, so we have a little commonality there ever since we go back a long way too. And Frank, I go back to Milt in the days that I helped him out actually with coaching in terms of the All-Star game back in the middle 80s, where I shared a staff with Wally Hucknall and Paul Fitzpatrick. We were on a staff together with Ray Carney. Jerry Smith was an assistant then. I remember Ray Carney saying, Jerry, no, not that way. And then Jerry, if he hears this thing, he'll probably smile, because Ray was always screaming at Jerry, and I used to laugh my rear end off just listening to those two go at each other. And Paul Fitzpatrick, my dear friend, now he's suffering an ailment with himself, but talk about that staff. Wally Hucknall and Paul Fitzpatrick, Ray Carney, those are kind of like the Mount Rushmore of coaching, all on one staff, and had a great time coaching those all-star kids. And Milt was, the center cook at all that thing. You put it together, and he was always the guy that kind of brought a laugh to the whole situation. And then from that point, he was always my friend. I tried to do whatever I could to further his game. I hosted the game a few times in Lancaster. And even when he needed a few pairs of pants, China gave it to him and said, look at Milt, you might need maybe a larger set of pants for that defensive tackle that I don't think you have a pair of pants for, and just try to help him out that way. And then even until his passing, he was so instrumental in terms of being the treasurer for the Alliance and helping me out with recruiting night and with the combine and everything we did together. Milt was such a dear friend. And Frank, he stayed in the background for all the things he did all those years, and never wanted his name in the headlines. Never wanted to take credit for all the good things he did for all those all-star teams and all those kids. He wanted to stay in the background, and he was so humble and so underappreciated. but not in the minds of the coaches that knew what kind of work he did. Just a great friend.
Excellent. I don't know if they're going to get that game off this year with what's going on right now. It would be losing the spring season the way it looks right now is difficult, and that would have a bigger impact than not having the Lions Club game. We can always have it next year. I just feel for the seniors that really look forward to playing in that game every year, and not even the seniors, but the coaches. They get the chance to move up. They worked as an assistant. Now they finally get to become the head coach of that game. Joe Licata was supposed to be a head coach. We talked to him yesterday, and he would be disappointed, of course, but we got to do what's best for the community. And if we can't have 250 people gathering, that knocks that event out, because you can get anywhere from 2,500 to, I swear I counted 5,000 people in Depew just a few years ago.
Yeah, it's quite an event. It's really the unofficial start of the football season when you think about it, because the kids that are going to be playing, and hopefully the 2020 year would come up to that game and kind of picture themselves on the field, as being the future people that play in an all-star game. So it's kind of a beginning for not only the kids, but some of the high school coaches that show up there. I know that Channel 2 kind of interviews a lot of coaches and does some promo with the coaches there that they can file away and then, maybe bring on task when the season does start. So it's kind of an unofficial beginning, kind of like I thought the combine would have been for the high school kids. Because I look forward to talking to them and trying to get them on the same track that all the other kids should be in Western New York, is say, look, you're going to be the seniors now for this 2020 year. Try to be the leader that you should be, and you'll never have this senior season to live through again. So try to make it meaningful for them. But you're right, Frank. It's that all-star game will be a huge loss if it doesn't happen. But if it doesn't, we got to make the best of a bad situation. And just like when you walk away from a football field, every game isn't won by both sides, and you have to make the best of even loss at a time. I just hope that we can become better for it and walk away and come back better.
Can you talk about the angriest you've ever been after a loss?
Yeah, well, Frank, number one, it's never, and I can honestly say this, and then maybe it's one of the few things I can say about my career. I never really took it out on kids, because the deep losses that I had were the ones that I knew I could have made a difference in terms of maybe a play call or maybe something I did in practice, or usually is preparation. And those are the kind of things that haunt you forever. It's never the wins. It's never the, it's the championship, because those are the things that make everybody feel good. The times you remember are the times you could have made the difference for those kids in the locker room and made their time better, because they're all your kids. They're all you talked about this before. They're kind of like an extension of your family, but in a different way. They're all looking at you for direction. They're all looking at you for the right answer at the right time. And if you don't give it to them, there's a little bit of break there, a little bit of disappointment, a lot on my side, and a lot of those times were deep set. It's just like it's difficult to equate this, but you just like it's like a bit of your heart's taken away, and it's never going to be replaced again, because you're disappointing these kids that work so hard, and they don't know anything about anything except working hard and trying to work for a win, work for something that they feel that they should deserve after all the work they put in. But the wise coach is the one that kind of tells the kids, you don't lose, but you learn. You don't put these on the loss column here. You make sure that you have the opportunity to win the next one. And everything in life, as we both know, sport reflects life. How more substantial than trying to equate sport with what's going on now in life in terms of adapting you to a situation, Frank. And you got to do the best you can with what you have and stay safe. And then that's what we tell our football people all the time. It's a team sport. One guy screws up, everybody kind of suffers for it. In this pandemic, one person screws up and the whole population screws up, because you spread the disease. So there's a lot of similarities or commonalities between sport and life and pandemics and wins, losses, whatever. But I don't think I ever lost it during a particular loss. But the person that I kind of feel bad for is my wife, because I always took these home to her for umpteen years. She was the person that sold football programs in a rainstorm, looked like a drowned rat a lot of times, and colder than ever. And then here I come home, and I won't talk to anybody except myself for the next 3 days until it wears off, and then we're back to see the team again and work hard. So it's a difficult thing. And then, in our school, I got to tell you too, if the community expects you to be successful. There's a little bit of underlying, you want to call it pressure, whatever, because they are so gung-ho for the sport, and they are so supportive. You hate to disappoint them too, and you walk around with a little bit of a weight on your shoulders, knowing that you got a lot to uphold in that program, and it kind of forces you to do more hard work for the kids in the community. So it's like it's like that, I know that motivational push from behind, Frank, that you got to do what you got to do, because there's a lot of people depending on you. So it's a good feeling too. But I'd rather have it that way than have an ambivalent community that didn't care about football, or kids that could take it either way. It's not that way at that district at all. It never has been.
Absolutely. No question about it. In terms of the alliance, with not being able to do this particular event, do you scramble to try and put something else together, or you just kind of let that one go, and you'll meet up with the kids again at New Era Field in the fall, late November?
Yeah, if I could just message out to people and to coaches, is that everybody's in the same boat now. There's no reason to panic. Everybody across the country, even those quote unquote football states had the same thing going on, where they can't practice, they can't get out there and further their skills, so to speak. So what I could mention to the kids, and certainly we're not going to have the combine rescheduled, because I think at this point in time, there's the health and safety of our whole community is at stake, and you really can't, you can't sacrifice that for the sake of a combine. But what I can message out to the high school coaches and also the kids is that, work on your huddle highlight tape now. Just make it so wow conscious, that you grab the attention of these college coaches that, Frank, by the way, they are recruiting by way of last year's tape.
Of course.
They are recruiting by things that are on huddle right now. Put the best of the best in there, so that people don't have to wade through, I don't know, 5 or 6 minutes of tape to get one highlight. It's got to be a wow factor. It's got to be the best of the best. And, you want to categorize it from early in the year to later in the year, whatever you want to do. And then, more importantly too, Frank, put together your SAT, ACT scores that are up to date, and maybe your GPA average that best, and what your academic pursuits might be, so that you make a little capsule of what you're doing, so that people have an idea of who you are, and then they can contact you the best way they can by way of social media, because eye contact is out the window. But I think you can make a lot of bridges by what I'm saying over here, because everybody's on huddle, Frank. Everybody's on huddle. Some D3 coaches use a different recruiting service and so forth, but everybody's on huddle. Everybody uses that film that all high school coaches use, even the pros use it. So, put your best foot forward, put your best tape there, and, let your good work do the talk. And then you can follow up with hopefully a great fall season whenever we get together, and everybody will start on the same page, and then we just keep moving on. But don't use this time just to sit back and say, all right, I'll wait until somebody tells me to move, because I guarantee you the coaches that are into football, and the successful ones, are not sitting on their hands right now. idly waiting time to go by until somebody says, okay, press play instead of pause. I'm sure they're doing their due diligence to make sure that whenever anybody says, all right, now we're ready to go, they're hitting that road running. They're not going to be just from a standstill start here. They're going to make sure that they have, everybody on the same page, and they're going to look to try to stay ahead of the pack. So, good luck the next season, but the next season is going to be uncharted territory for a lot of schools. But, I'm kind of looking forward to maybe, I don't know whether or not they're going to be normal times, whatever normal means back in the, in the fall. Let's hope that we can start, together. And certainly after this pandemic, Frank, I think both you and I can agree that, there's some good even out of this challenging time that we can, garner out of these times here.
We'll find the good somewhere. There's got to be a silver lining in all this, and I'm sure we'll find it. Obviously, love spending as much time as we possibly can. I wanted to ask you, this fall, do you expect to be back in the booth at all, or could we hear you again, maybe on Spectrum?
Well, it's up to Rick Carneth and the powers that be. I have a little contract with Sal Capaccio now. We kind of like working together. I just love him. Of course, who doesn't love Sal? It's like Santa Claus. Everybody loves Sal Capaccio, right? But when I do games with him, it's funny. It's like he's like a rock star, and he comes on the field and I point the finger to Sal, the kids stand up and cheer, and I said, I look at him and I says, you little ball-headed guy. He has that look on your face that is appealing to everybody. I just love doing games with him.
Yeah.
It's another way to get involved with the game. Rick Carneth was good enough to let me do the games last year. I don't know whether or not he'll do it. I don't even know whether or not Spectrum will have games to do this year. We don't even know that. But what it did, though, Frank, is that it made me stay involved with the game. I visit both schools during the week, and I kind of be hands-on with the team, try to see what they're doing. Whatever team I'm doing, I just cover them. I just try to go in depth and try to talk to kids, talk to coaches firsthand at their practices throughout the week. And I don't bring anything to either team. I'm not like the mole to say, hey, they're doing this play or they're doing this defense. I keep it to myself, and most of the coaches know me, so they kind of trust me in that way. But it's fun because, Frank, I never had a chance to do this when I coached, and none of these coaches do either. You never have a chance to see how other teams practice. You're practicing yourself. Now, it comes too late in my career, but it's interesting to see how people conduct their own practices, because this is the heart and soul of their program, how they conduct practices day in and day out. And how important it would be for coaches to really see how other teams work on the field, But during the season, you never had the chance to do that because you're worried about your own kids.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's great. It's great that way.
Well, I don't know if we can afford you, but if you're looking for something on a Thursday or a Saturday next year, if Spectrum doesn't have you, we'd love to have you on one of our broadcasts in our booth. John Simon calls a great game. Jake Fyack, they call great games. Mark Johnson, who does radio there for a lot of the Lancaster games, does a good job. So we'd love to have you in the booth. If we can get you even for one game, that'd be like the Super Bowl of games for us.
Well, that'd be great. No, that'd be great. John is Howard's son, isn't?
Yeah. Yeah.
How about that? Yeah. And I've done some games with Howard. Of course, he's given it up. And I always told him is that I think I know you more than you know yourself. I mean, you kind of forget that. These radio people that kind of live with you all the time.
Of course.
I mean, how can you not know them from their voice? I mean, everything comes out in your voice, even though it's,
Sure.
It's not like seeing somebody over the airwaves like you're doing now. But my goodness, good stuff.
You'd have a lot of fun with John doing a game at some point. I hope to put that together, but I hope you stay healthy. You got everything you need. You got the great support of your wife to continue doing what you do best. And
we've been practicing our social distancing here, Frank, and it's kind of good that way too. She has her own thing she does here. We have a elderly parent we're trying to take care of. Unfortunately, he's at the nursing home right now, but up until recently, my wife, who has the heart of gold, she was spending time with him at home. Actually, for the last 2.5 years, talk about just a vision from heaven in terms of being there. You suffering from dementia and all those things that you do when you get older and all those things that deteriorate. But the loving care my wife gave to my father-in-law, who I love myself, was something to behold, and up until recently, he just couldn't handle it. Now he's in a nursing home. So we're hoping that we can get together and see him again, but because of the constraints now with nursing homes and visits and so forth, we can't. But we hope that, sooner or later we can see him again. He's 96 years old. He's a spunky old fella, and we love to see him again, hopefully in good spirits. And, but because of what's going on, everybody knows that you have to stay away. But both my wife and I are dealing with this, doing a lot of little chores around the house. If I could give some ideas to people out there, make a checklist of the things that you really do, before the summer, get them done now. And then maybe when this stuff is over with, you'll say, geez, I got that done. That was one less thing to worry about. I can chew up my summer with, So that's what I'm trying to do right now. And believe me, if you have a home, you have a lot of work.
Yes, you do. That lawn isn't going to cut itself.
No, you're right.
But thank you very much, Len Jancowitz, Hall of Famer, in every sense of the word. I'm looking forward to seeing you. If it's got to be in the fall, it's got to be in the fall. We'll continue our social distancing until the governor says get back on the field, and maybe I'll see you at the Lancaster 7-on-7. That would probably be the next opportunity I get to see you.
Frank, and thanks for everything that Western New York Athletics is doing for not only football, but for all sports. And I think you put a shine on the kids' lives that deserve it so much for all the time that they put in, more than we've ever had people do in the past. How athletics is so etched into their lives, in every aspect. And you give this aspect of their life so much shine, and I think a lot of times it goes unsaid. But thank you very much from everybody here.
Well, I had a lot of practice on this head of mine when you talk about shine.
You still look good to me. Just you and Sal work together.
I'm going to the Capaccio School of Hairdressing.
Thank you for having me. Thanks for having me, Frank.
Always a pleasure.
WNYathletics.com is the premier high school sports website in Western New York, providing the best sports coverage of Section 6 and Monsignor Martin leagues. Check out our page for daily game recaps and late-breaking sports news. Our online scoreboards are updated in real time. Never miss a goal or touchdown. Visit WNYathletics.com today or follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and subscribe to our YouTube.
Welcome back to WNY High School Sportsline, where I'm joined by Brian Stoltz. He is a 2014 graduate of the Alden Bulldogs, where he was a part of a two-time section championship. Went on to Allegheny College, graduated there in 2017, and now he is with the Alfred University Saxons. And welcome aboard, Brian. How are you today?
Good, Frank. Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here, and I'm excited to talk football.
Yeah, I wanted to get you in for the last since we started doing the show last week. I had your dad as one of my original guests, although we weren't really called Sportsline just yet. And for those who don't remember or aren't familiar, Brian is the youngest son of Ken Stoldt, the Section 6 football chairman here in Western New York. He has another older son, Tyler, who is down in Palmetto, Florida, coaching at a high school there as the offensive coordinator. Brian is a defensive backs coach for the Saxons right now. And Brian, I've been seeing your name on social media in regards to, mostly last year and a little bit the year before, recruiting or just talking about your program. Right now, with what's going on with the whole Corona thing, I got to imagine that's been severely impacted.
Yeah, it's definitely been a challenge, not only for us at Alfred University, but, all the college coaches across the board. But, even the high school college football players. But, most importantly, it's been a challenge for everyone in our society. And just, obviously, safety is the first priority. But from our standpoint, just trying to find a way to stay busy and productive and making the most out of the situation we've been dealt. It's not an easy time right now, but I gotta give credit to our head coach, Coach Rankle, for still just trying to make the most out of the situation and taking the most advantage, using it as an advantage with social media, and trying to keep tabs on as many recruits as possible, and just stay in contact and be ready to go for when that day does come where we're back on campus.
Have you guys announced your 2020 schedule? I saw recently Buff State announced theirs.
I don't believe that we've had an official announcement yet because I know there was one non-conference game that ended up with the contract ended up switching, so they were still finalizing. But I believe on our website right now, most of our games are there.
Anyone in particular you look forward to more than another?
See, every team, every opponent, you gotta respect. Obviously, in the Empire 8, there's so much good competition, and I know our players and our coaches, they get up for those games. But, definitely, even with a lot of crossover non-conference games, we're playing teams in the Liberty League, and they're great competition as well. So, New York football, Division III especially, it's great football, and we look forward to all those games.
Talk about some of the Western New York recruits, if you will, out of Section 6 and maybe even out of the Monsignor Martin you've had the last couple of years, and which one that are starting to have an impact on the program there.
Well, God, just in the unit I coach alone, the defensive backfield, Raekwon Greer from Canisius High School, he is a different kind. This year, his junior season, he was first-team All-American. And he's a different player coming out playing safety, hitting guys. He's a leader on our team, and he's got senior season coming up. Staying at Canisius, got Jeremiah Young. Those two are good friends. He's also just a great player that brings so much energy, and he had a tough injury early on in his career that he's really bounced back from. And he's done a great job. I know up front on the offensive line, we have Ethan Stewart from Williamsville South. He's really emerged as a leader on our team, and he does a great job. So, I know there's a lot more guys definitely talk about Coach Rankle, especially over the course of many years. He's got a lot of great players from Section 6, and I know we continue to try and find as many of them as possible.
Brian, there are guys that go through their high school football careers, and they might be fringe players. They may not be the household name, so to speak. They may not get their name in the paper a whole awful lot. But they make a decision to continue on playing. Do you notice at times that there are kids that come out of the high school ranks into college, and next thing you know, they hit another, they just take off? Like maybe they didn't have a coming out party in high school, they just matured later in life and became, twice as good a football player at the collegiate level than they ever thought they could have been.
Absolutely. There's so many different scenarios where every player's career it's a different path. But I know one of our coaches, Coach Bonaquisti, who coaches our linebackers, he talks a lot about how there's some guys that maybe they weren't that top-tier player on their high school team, and maybe they didn't get like a ton of publicity in high school, or they weren't that guy that was just constantly at the top, but then they get to college where at first for everybody, you start off as a scout team player probably, and that could be a really tough adjustment for somebody who their whole life in high school was a 3-4 year starter, and they were constantly the guy on their team. And for somebody who comes into college that was used to maybe not being the top guy, they might be in a little bit of an advantage because they're used to, hey, I got to go through the scouting process first. I got to take that next step. And I think you do see that more common than not, where guys that are used to really working their way through the system, they come to college and they're ready to go.
What's the biggest mistake a sophomore, junior, or senior high school player makes in regards to maybe getting that look at school that they should be looking at, or what's a common mistake you see kids make that you would like to maybe point out so that those that are watching could avoid that?
I think the biggest thing is just not overlooking Division III football. Understanding that obviously if you want to try and get to a Division II or Division I school, that's great, and there's some players that can do it and do a great job. But Division III football is very challenging, and it's college football. You got to be ready to play. You got to be ready to work, and it's not. You don't just walk in there and be ready to go. And I think it's just respecting Division III overall, understanding that it's good football, and seeing that there can be great opportunities that arise from playing Division III football. And I think that's the biggest thing. As you're a sophomore and junior, don't be afraid to start reaching out to Division III schools and looking at what programs they have and really positioning yourself for a good spot.
What is unique about Alfred University that maybe another Division III school in Western New York may not offer? What's different about Alfred?
Well, Alfred, I mean, just right off the fact that it's down in the southern tier. It's not a secret. There's not a ton around Alfred, but just the fact that it's its own place. On game days, the stadium fills up, and it's like everybody in the town, they know they're going to watch the Saxons play. And I think that's a big thing where if you're in a big community where it's spread out, there's a lot going on. It's like Saturdays when there's a home Saxon football game, people are going to be there. And it's a smaller college, it's a private school. So same thing, our campus is very involved. We started playing played the first night team in 20 years last year. I believe we were one of the works to have another night team this year. It's like people really buy into it, come to the games. And we got some great programs too between our engineering program, our athletic training. We're really specialized in those. And I think, players who have went through those programs, they love it and it's been a great experience for them.
He's not a football player, but I know a good friend of the program does a lot of work for WNY Athletics. Cal Phillips, his son, goes down to Alfred. He's in the engineering program, and he sings its praises. Give a shout out to Cal because he does a lot of work for us. But Brian, you're at the collegiate. You're coaching at the collegiate level. Is it to get experience here so that you could maybe become a head coach at the high school level someday? Or are you where you want to be and you're going to try and stay in the collegiate ranks from here on out, or would you come back to the high school level?
I love the game of football. I love coaching, and obviously the goal is to coach at as high level as possible and, just do the best job that I possibly can. Definitely not saying no to any sort of coaching job. I'm definitely open to any experience, but, right now I coach defensive backs at Alfred University, and I love it. It's been a great experience so far these last 2 seasons, and, I look forward to continuing to coach this great game.
You come from a family of coaches. Your father coaches. He got back into it last season, helping out the Akron varsity team with defense there. Your older brother's an offensive coordinator. How often do you guys go back and forth and compare notes and strategies?
All the time. We're constantly, between those 2 guys right there, they're 2 of my biggest role models in life, especially with the football experience. My dad, he was a head coach for 20 plus years, and Ty, his 3-4 years already being an offensive coordinator, and the success his team had this past season. We're always, whenever he's home up from Florida, we're on the board talking about football stuff, or even if it's just phone calls, just going back, we were Bills season ticket holders ever since I can remember, so football's been a part of our family, like many families in the area, but we definitely have some great conversations and are constantly learning from one another.
Your dad mentioned a little while ago, I got a chance to talk to him, that you may be considering a second career as a dealer at the casino. Talk about your card shuffling ability.
Quarantine, it's been pretty rough, and just the fact that we've had to play a lot of card games, that's definitely not my dealing and shuffling cards, not my strong suit, but I'm getting better, constantly learning.
All right, you scared us for a second there. You grew up in Alden.
Yep.
Isn't there a correctional facility around there?
Yeah, there is at the north part of town.
Okay. Did your dad, as you were growing up as a kid, you and your brother, did he take like a slow roll past the correctional facility, maybe on a Saturday or Sunday, if you maybe had maybe an episode at home or something? Did he ever like make a slow roll past the correctional facility and say, you know what, I could easily drop you off here?
Yeah, teach us a lesson. Yeah, no, usually whenever there are conflicts between my brother and I at home, usually my parents did a pretty good job taking care of it right then and there.
So there were no threats about sending you to the Eldon Correctional Facility?
No, none there.
You know, there's a head coaching job open at Alden right now.
Yeah, speaking with Coach Curran, it's definitely somebody who huge role model in my life, and as long as I've known Alden football, he's been part of it. And I know that wasn't an easy decision for him. And I respect the fact that he's on to his next opportunity. And in terms of his life, his kids are getting older, but he's one man that I'm very thankful for. And he did a great job with that program.
All right. What's the outlook for the Saxons heading up into this season? And I believe you would expect there to be a season. I know there's a lot of talk right now that, we don't have a spring season right now. Oh, how backed up are you guys with this whole thing? What are you guys doing to communicate with your players? What are you doing to communicate with your recruits? How is that going? And is it tough getting kids to commit to Alfred right now, given the current circumstance that we're in?
I'll start off first with recruits. Luckily, we've still been having a lot of kids committing because we held most of our on-campus visits early in January and February. So a lot of those kids got their time on campus and everybody went through the application. So we've worked out. We've been still doing a good job getting kids being able to commit, and we're happy with the class that we've had thus far. Hopefully, still look at add some more guys for sure. In terms of our current team, it's been a challenge, but it's been a challenge for every college football team. It's how can we still make the most of this situation. We've been having Zoom meetings with our players just to be in contact with them, see how they're doing, and staying in touch. And those have been very effective. We've been having staff meetings still over Zoom, just a way of same thing, Coach Rankle, laying out what we need to do as a staff and make sure that we're still working hard and doing the best we can. But then, I think the biggest challenge for a lot of our players has been with their weightlifting. A lot of them, if they're at home, they don't have the equipment necessary to, be ready to go. But our strength coach has done a really good job that, he's been giving them alternative workouts where, it's just body weight stuff. You can still stay in shape. And that's, as far as the season goes next year, we got a plan. It's going to be ready to go. And, obviously, I don't have any more to say on whether or not there will be or will not be a season, but I know our guys are playing like there's going to be, and we are certainly hopeful that.
Brian, I appreciate you coming on board with me today. The WNY High School Sportsline. Hopefully I didn't bust your chops too much. We'd love to have you back, though. We'd love to have you back maybe this summer once we get into the, back into the groove of football and that sort of thing. Check in and see how the Saxons are doing. I know there's a lot of kids from Section 6 in Western New York, Monsignor Martin, that have headed your way that we covered for the last 4 to 5 seasons here. So see if we can't get a few more out your way.
Yeah, absolutely, Frank. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. Thanks for all you do for Western New York football and our sports.
Welcome back to WNY Athletics High School Sportsline. Not a bad show today, and we're not done yet. Don't click off just yet here. I got a few things I want to share before we get out of here. And I want to send a happy birthday out to the mayor. That is Luke Prince. You know who you are. The son of Tom Prince. Luke, you're the apple of your father's eye. He talks about you all the time. He's very proud of you, as he is your older 2 brothers. But Luke, today's your day. Congratulations on turning 15 today. Man. But I don't think you'll be getting that license anytime soon. Let me play this video for you real quick. I'll be right back. So we found out recently, yesterday I guess, that longtime track and field coach Anthony Percival from Cleve Hill passed away, a teacher. He retired not too long ago. I never knew Coach Percival. I heard of him. I'm sure I bumped into him on the sideline as he helped out Coach Graham, coached up a number of those football players. It's no secret that the Cleve Hill track team was highly successful under his watch. And I know that the Cleve Hill family is hurting today. I want to let you all know that the entire Western New York high school sports community is thinking about you today, and we'll do what we can to help you get through this very difficult time. I know that Coach Percival meant a lot to Markel Slaughter, who used to work here in Western New York as a journalist, and now out in Utica. Briefly spoke to Coach Graham yesterday, didn't really have a lot of back and forth, but passed along our condolences to him and his friends at Cleve Hill. So I want to make sure we send our condolences out to the Percival family from the bottom of our hearts. It's a tough loss for the community. So today we had Lenny Jancowitz on, the Hall of Famer. We had Brian Stoldt from Alfred University. The rest of the week I've got a number of guests. We've got Benji Blumen, a basketball official who you know very well. He will be joining me hopefully tomorrow. He was going to do it today, but just couldn't do it today. So he should be in tomorrow. Joe Carlson from Starpoint. I don't know if we'll get him Thursday or Friday, but he's coming. He's going to talk about his commitment going out to Cortland. He's going to team up with Zach Boyce. Maddie Fox, a track star from Ken East. Victoria Port from Mount St. Mary's. Alexa and Bella Judge from Sacred Heart will also be joining me this week on the WNY High School Sportsline. I want to thank everybody for your time today, welcoming this program into your home. We do it every night, 8 o'clock, on Facebook and on YouTube. Until tomorrow, WNY Athletics signing off. Have a good night.